facility completely ADA compliant and code compliant, and by adding 8 spaces along Mill Road and using the rear alley access, we would solve the parking issue. And then I would suggest a modest renovation of the existing administration building because the space needs are getting less each year. And it would include expanding this meeting room here by 75% within the existing walls. And I believe that would cost about $1 million. Then I believe we should move the rec department offices to the great new C-Rec Center, which really should be its home, and use the Glendale property for paramedic offices, file storage, and a second recycling center, cost of about $500,000. Now that proposal, I believe, would be a cost of about $12 to $14 million. And that's my time's up, but if I could just one more minute, since we don't have too many people speaking. I'd like to say besides manageable monetary benefits, other advantages would include much less strain on the Manoa property, the parking, the roads, and concurrent uses, and beneficial improvements would still be made to the parking area and the site access. A complete modern library renovation, which costs half of a new building with adequate parking. The library time frame for approvals, permitting, and construction that's independent of the other projects. That's very important. They can do this on their own time frame. The administration and Quatrani renovations that could occur this year and give us an appropriate but economic civic meeting space, and consolidation of recreation administration activities, and a second recycling center to serve another part of town. Thank you, and that's my suggestion.
Okay. Anyone else on this side want to speak? Come on up. Anybody, come to the podium. We have plenty of time. It's okay. Go ahead.
Margaret King, 318 Oxford Road. I thought Mr. Bedosian's was excellent, and that's what I didn't say anything before, because that's what I was trying to find out what was going on. I've been in Haverford Township now for close to 50 years, have 8 children, and have been paying the taxes, which are very high, for a long, long time. And what you suggested is economical, what we want and what we need, and it sounds to me like it's beautiful and just perfect. All right, we don't need anything to be built. We have schools that are empty. I'm from Annunciation Parish. We have a beautiful school that's ready to be leased or rented or whatever. There's so many things we could go for and look into, but not real fast. Not real fast. We have to go slow. People are moving out because of the taxes so high. And what is this going to cost us? Do you know? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Right.
Are you a senior citizen, Margaret? I just, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, next.
Atta girl, Peg.
Laura Conley, 10 Landmill Road. I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I just wanted to mention that I came here just to listen to different proposals, and I thought I'd ask my daughter, who's been going, she's a 10th grader, she's been going to the library since 6th grade, and she goes there practically every day after school. So I asked her, which would you rather have, a library at Manoa or a library where it is now? And she actually prefers where it is now. Going to Manoa is further away. It's close. You know, she's been going there. It's right after school. She said when schools close early, that's where people meet. It's like a central meeting place for her and her friends. And she's been doing this for 10 years now, or 4 years now. So I just thought it'd be nice to mention that the kids do appreciate going there, and maybe they're included in this. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? On this side? Wanna? Don't break it.
That's it. Meeting's over. This kind of speaks to having a library meet everybody's needs, big and small, old and young. My name is Gail Wood, and I live at 1901 Lawrence Road. I'm just going to hold this, okay?
Yeah, just hold it. Just hold it.
Okay. I believe that a library is the intellectual center of a community, and a town without a good, accessible, modern library is a very sad statement. I agree with what people have said about not rushing, but I also would strongly say that I'll be very disappointed if the can continues to be kicked. This is a need that needs to be filled, and it needs to be filled in time for the current generation of young people and us older people who want to age gracefully and have a library to aid us in that. I'm concerned about throwing good money after bad. The library, as we know, has been not at the top of a lot of people's lists and is now in bad shape. So those of you who are looking at how to fix it need to be concerned about how to do that in a way that will not bring us back to the same discussion in 5 years. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and would go by the IRS building all of the time, not smiling, but at the top of the building it says, "Taxes are what we pay for a free society." I believe that we need to have a library that is accessible, has at least 3 times the amount of parking that it has now, however you achieve that, and that it needs to be built, that the decision needs to be made in such a way that we're looking at a 20 or 30-year plan for growth and changes in technology. So one of the things that I am fond of saying is don't trade tomorrow for today. But on the other hand, don't push the decisions off too far into tomorrow, or you will lose a lot, not only from what will happen with the children, but from taxpayers like me who want to live in a town that has a good library of which they can be proud. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Hold on. I'm sorry. Ma'am, would you like to speak? Sorry, Dr. Levin, she hasn't spoken yet.
Irene Coffey, 1437 Maryland. Thank you for listening to us again and for rescheduling despite Mother Nature's obstacles. I do appreciate that. I grew up in the township. I've been using this current building for decades at this point as a borrower, a program attender, used their reference services, and it was probably instrumental in my decision to become a librarian. So I have a certain feeling of nostalgia for it. But putting that aside, I really am not in favor of renovating the current building. I feel that it would be better to try for new construction, whether it's part of a municipal building or someplace else in the township. I'm very concerned about the idea of closing the library for 6 months to a year while the building is renovated. I think that would result in a serious loss of programs and services to the community. I'm also concerned about what that might do to the current very talented staff that we have. Does that affect any of them? Would they lose their jobs, go away, not come back? I don't know. As a librarian in my career, I've had the experience of working in a space that wasn't adequate and that wasn't technologically up-to-date enough. And I know what a drain that can be on the time, the physical energy, and the creative energy of the staff. And I think that that impacts the staff that we have now. How much of Chris Barris's time is spent dealing with building issues, and how much more time could she be spending in something more creative that would be of better service to the township as a whole? I think that a larger library, wherever it happens to be, could provide more space for small collaborative workrooms for patrons, or meeting rooms for patrons, more spacious computer areas, a quieter environment generally without people being piled on top of each other, whether that's the staff or the patrons using it. And I also feel that from a funding standpoint, there is a possibility that we could raise money either by selling the current property or possibly through grants or some other fundraising. As some other people have mentioned, we've done a lot in the township in recent years to address the physical well-being. I think we all appreciate whether it's Murray Place or Freedom Playground or the trails at Haverford Reserve or whatever. I like the trails, but there's going to come a time in my life when I probably can't walk those trails anymore, but I think I'll still be able to use the library. So I would like to see us at this point in time address the intellectual needs of the community, and I think that a new library is going to do that. I think if we renovate the current library, it's a little bit like many of us had the experience in life of having a car that we keep putting money into and we keep repairing it either out of affection or because of financial concerns. At a certain point in time, I think you have to cut your losses and you have to say, no matter how much money we put into this car, we may be able to keep it running, but it's never going to have the features that a new car can have. I think at this point it's time for us to cut our losses and get the new car, wherever it ends up being in the township. Thank you.
Hey, hold on, Dr. Miller. I'll get to you, okay? I promise. You'll be able to speak again. Anyone else? Good doctor? You're ready to go.
I want to respond to particularly the last talk. The last speaker. My name is Mike Levin, 414 Mill Road, a 25-year resident, 24-year resident of Haverford. I mentioned to you earlier that a library is a cost of doing business in this township. It almost always has been a cost of doing business in colonial America. If you couldn't afford to go to one of the two colleges that were then open, you could find a preacher who would take you in and tutor you. That was the established norm at that time in lower New England. I don't know what happened in Maine, but I can say that in Connecticut and Massachusetts, the principal problem that existed was getting an education. You may be recommended for it. Libraries then came in as part of the universities. After that, in order to get settlers to move into Vermont and New Hampshire from Massachusetts, they had to build something after the land jobbers had taken the land and had begun selling it off to induce people from Connecticut to move north. The population at about 17, just before the Revolutionary War in Vermont, was about 700 individuals, all of whom were hardy because the area was not one in which they had land that they could own. It was contested between New York and New Hampshire, both of which had powerful colonial governors. Now, on the library that would exist in Haverford as a result of renovation, I don't believe that the library would have to close down completely. This can be staged in the first place. And second, in staging that, the plans should probably be drawn with two considerations in mind. One, of using it as the community center where many of the library functions today take place, and then after a period of time, the library can ask them to find another place to do business if they happen to be strong enough at the time. Otherwise, they would have to take their chances of using the library as a facility or meeting rooms as they are available. I believe that the library could be made, this current library could be made modern. What is modern today? It is not necessarily a library such as exists in San Antonio, Texas, which is all electronic, which has only electronic. I believe kids who are growing up have to learn to turn pages in books. I believe that's extremely important. I have always been concerned about sending computers into the schools in the 6th grade or 5th grade, I don't think there's enough that they can get out of it. They certainly so. We're looking at a library which has books as well as access to other books, a limited number of books, and access to a library system that can provide these rapidly. And second, it should have some computers for people who wish to learn how to use them. Not playing games, I'm talking about learning how to use them to read and write. And also perhaps some Kindles as well. Personally, the cost of books now is so inexpensive that you can go to Thrift Books and buy a book that is available for $25 elsewhere for $5 and free shipping, brand new. They're cheap and available. So I'm very strongly suggesting that in addition, the building could have its own connectors to the crossing of Darby Road by expanding that crossing and making it even safer. That they could then pick up the trail to the playing fields on the other side of Darby Road, and the trail which would go to the YMCA also. So, I believe that the current library could serve the needs if it were expanded, if it were renovated, if it had modern facilities put in, if a time motion study was done on what things are needed on the first floor. It is certainly within range. As a historic structure, if you were to vote the library out of existence as a historic structure, I think you would have a sign of outrage from the community for doing so. And I would agree to work with anyone who is similarly minded regarding this in continuing to press the case for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levin. All right, anyone else? Anyone else would like to speak? Would you like to speak? Come on up. See, came right in. Perfect timing. Yeah?
Michelle Alvarez, 134 Hastings Avenue, and I'm sorry I'm late, and I don't know if I'm repeating what's already been said. But I had a new thought since the last meeting, and I was wondering whether we couldn't consider moving the library to the old Lanark School, which is the Stratford Friends School that's been under contention with the CareLink. And in talking to other people that live in that area and so forth, the school has already been renovated pretty recently when Stratford School was there. It has a very good-sized parking lot, and it has a playground on the property, and it would be an ideal location for a library. So I just throw that out there as my new, and it's not totally my idea. I have to give credit to Tony Zinni because he and I came up with that together. So, one more idea.
All right, thank you. I have heard that before. A few times. Okay. Anyone else? There being no one else, we will close the meeting. And
Well, explain the rules here, Mario, so everybody understands and TV land understands what we're doing here. I
Okay,
mean, explain why we're not talking.
okay, we'll be discussing this. We're fact-finding. We'll probably have another meeting to have public comment in our work session. And at that point, we will we'll take everybody's input, and we will discuss it at the March meeting, and from there, decide which way to go. Then the commissioners will discuss it. I don't want to speak for any other commissioner. I haven't talked to anyone or, specifically about what's going on. So we'll talk about it in public at the March commissioners meeting.
We're not voting on it in March, are we, Marion?
That's up to the board.
What was
That's-
that, what'd you say?
No, I was
We'll
asking.
have
if
No, I
there's-
didn't hear what he said, though.
Like, I guess two questions. One, are we having another meeting like at the middle school again?
We're having I'm not sure we need to have one at the middle school. So I think we can have another meeting here.
You're saying we're going to discuss it at the work session, correct?
The
Correct.
March 3rd work session. as
session,
This
right.
board would remember, we actually, because of the weather and the postponements of the other meetings,
Right.
we actually have a number of presenters. We may have to extend that work
Okay.
session for a little bit longer, but we have our investors that come in, do their yearly
Right.
report, and I believe there's someone from the Historical Commission making
A presentation.
presentation, so we
Oh,
actually have three
We'll
presentations.
get more public input, and then we will, at the commissioners' meeting, we will discuss, this board will openly discuss
The work session, we're gonna.
this thing and whether we make a decision or not. Okay?
But we're currently planning on the March agenda to have something for us to
Yeah,
act on, a building plan for that site. Authorize the township to go forward with something.
Exactly.
I don't
We
mean to
could- I mean,
overstate it. We were going to
again, I don't
take
wanna-
action at the March meeting.
Correct, but I don't want to, the board will decide if we take action or not. at that
Right.
meeting.
We could table
Okay?
it, we can have
Exactly.
enough votes, people could do whatever, but the point is, the public should know that on the agenda at the March meeting is, it's our current intention now to try to act on this.
Right. It will be discussion about everything that's been talked about, and the commissioners will be allowed to speak freely about the subject, and then if we would like to make a decision, if not, we'll table it until the next commissioners meeting. Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Maybe open it up again.
I'm sorry. You have to come up to the podium if you want to ask a
Bless you.
question.
You could, she wants to ask a question,
Yeah,
too.
come on up. Yeah, sure. Just come up to the podium so they can.
Lizzie, 236 Washington Avenue. One question. You're saying you're going to vote on this in March. How are you going to vote on it if you're going to act on it if you don't have a budget or a building or anything to concrete? How are you going to be able to vote to go with it unless you inform the citizens on how much it's actually going to cost them?
Okay,
That's my question.
Well, the decision isn't going to be to move forward on a bond issue or anything like that. It is just whether to move forward on plans to do it at that location or to renovate it at its current location. So there will be discussion at that point. Whether we make a decision or not, I don't know if we'll be able to make a decision, but we'll have enough information, but there'll be discussion at that point.
I agree with what
Good,
she's
Dan.
saying, though, I don't know. how to
Property
do that.
Committee is asking this board to do is to give it guidance as to whether, in our planning for a municipal services building, it should or should not include the library as part of that. The Property Committee would then have to go back and get requests for qualifications, as we began to do last fall. Once we get that, we'd get requests for proposals, and then we would know whether, based on our estimates, the cost is consistent. Then we bring it back to the board, would be months later, for approval. It's the same process, literally identically, as was done with the rec center, and it would be the same process, except for this facility, whether with or without the library. That's the board's decision. I'm not going to speak for the board. But that's the plan. It would not be to say, next month we're building X or Y, but the Property Committee, which is the committee of the board that's charged with overseeing these activities, needs to have guidance, because obviously there are many opinions, and if we can't move forward without knowing that the boards wants us to proceed one way or the other.
Now, Mario, I want to correct that statement. First of all, the property committee, the library was not part of this plan, okay? It was not part. We had agreed on basically three things: Public Works Yard, the police station, the township building. They were the three plans. So he's making it sound like that was part of the